Business Focus.
Welcome to episode 1 of Business Focus. You wouldn't know it, but this is about take 3, trying to get the room to a temperature I can handle. I'm surrounded by fans. We've got the aircon cranking, and yet I'm still drinking a hot coffee. Smart man. Okay, but so what is Business Focus? It is a podcast that is designed to help people in business get ahead through introducing them to new tools, new technology, and new ideas. And we thought for episode 1, we would kick it off by talking about Copilot. And to help me do that, given I know very little about Copilot, is Mia Tait, who is our Microsoft practice lead. Mia, welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Episode 1.
Well, episode 1. Thank you for volunteering to be our guinea pig to get involved from day one. If anything goes wrong, it's on me. All right, so, which is not what I said to you before we started filming. But, okay, so look, let's talk about Copilot first. Let's not talk about Copilot. Let's talk about you. Let's start off by you giving us all the reasons why we should listen to you when you tell us about, the pricing, licensing, features, and real-world applications of Copilot.
I've, done a lot of different things that has led me to working in this space. And so I love everything to do with, or my favorite thing is everything technology, but let's make it usable. Right. Let's talk at it from an end user's perspective. So long story short, I ended up in the IT space after lots of different things in my career, everything from driving a dump truck to managing an accounting firm to running or being the ops manager for a consulting firm. And that's how my introduction to 365 started. I saw the power of it, and I've been in the space for 10 years.
Right.
So.
Well, that's why I think you're a great guest for the subject, because there's a lot of talk about AI, a lot of talk about high level, what it is, large language models, ChatGPT, Copilot. But what I think people in business really want to know is, how do I get ahead using this? What are the real world applications, right? And then there's also the return on it. Are the things it can currently do they provide a return on the cost of implementing them? So
absolutely.
Let's dive into that a little bit, but let's first set the scene. Like, what is Copilot? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, okay. So great place to start.
Pretty important. The thing we're talking about. What is it? Yeah, cool.
So look, I think from my perspective, of the way I understand it or explain it best is there's different types of AI. There's OpenAI, and then there's sort of more generative AI. And so Copilot specifically gives us this generative AI across all of our business applications. And this is an absolute game changer for the way we work. So up until this launch, there has been nothing that has disrupted the workplace this much since the launch of the internet.
Right, big call.
20 plus years. So we're talking a complete change of the way that businesses work. Now, from a business perspective, whether you like AI or whether you adopt AI or not, if you don't understand it and you're not getting on this bandwagon, you are going to be absolutely left behind.
Yeah, that's individually and as a business, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's no downside to getting up to speed with what's going on.
And as I awkwardly wipe my nose, I guess real world sort of, how it actually, what's the experience using it, right? So I'm in a Word doc and I don't know, start to write a document, and I think, actually, I've written similar things before. A prompt box pops up and you can essentially go, hey, use file called X to pre-fill this based on XYZ parameters.
Yeah, essentially. Look, there's lots of different examples, but if we take a step sort of back, there's lots of different, iterations, shall we say, or uses, but they're broken down into different licensing or different almost models of the Copilot application. To circle back around, Copilot allows us to put this generative AI across our workplace. Now, people might say ChatGPT, it's been around since 2022.
Yep.
And, there's lots of other, similar sort of rollouts of it. What's the difference with Copilot? Well, the big thing here is that there aren't any other generative AI options that tie together our whole working environment.
Right.
This isn't just you log into ChatGPT and you ask it questions and it gives us stuff. This is, I log into my Microsoft stack and I now have this generative AI across all my applications, all my company information. That's a Microsoft 365 Copilot solution. What the other options are around Copilot are, there's a free one right now, Bing. So you can install the Bing app on your device and start asking it questions. So funnily enough, when we started talking about doing this podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to get up to speed really quickly. And you know what I did? I downloaded the Bing app and I started asking it questions.
Right.
And
how long has that one been available for? Because
I think I don't want to get it wrong, but roughly 12 months, I think,
okay.
or definitely mid last year.
So the biggest difference in the recent changes, which was Microsoft saying that I think the 300 seat minimum purchase for the Copilot,
Yes.
it was the Pro version.
Yeah, so I'll run through them now. So
Okay.
basically, we've got free Copilot, which is Bing. It's a bit of fun, right? So you can even ask it to generate images based on create me, with my daughter, I was like, create me a pink unicorn with a gold horn, call it Tilly. It's very cool.
Is that something sorry to interrupt, but is that ChatGPT has DALL-E, right? Or
yes.
So is it essentially they call it something else, or is it just actually an image feature within
Microsoft Designer, I think it's called.
Okay.
It utilizes, but we'll get into that. But just this week, DALL-E is now going to be available in Microsoft 365 stack. It's huge, a huge update that's coming. But in any case, you've got Copilot free using the Bing option. You've got Copilot Pro, which is an individual iteration of Copilot that's a standalone. So what I mean by that is, you know how you have your home or office iteration of the Word, Excel, PowerPoint, so the 365 stack. That's what Copilot Pro is. It's for users that don't necessarily have 365 for Business.
Okay.
So they install that and it's $33 a user a month and they can go to town, have fun with it. It's basically got your GPT Pro, your GPT Turbo.
They're already making it pretty confusing with all the different terms.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And every different company has their own take on it. Like I think the Google one's Ultra, whereas this is like GPT Turbo, You know what
we should do as a company is we should come up with a table that aligns all this stuff and the feature parity between different names across the board. That'd be cool.
The cool thing is Copilot completely supersedes all of them.
Okay, great.
Because it brings together all of these Office apps. It's not just one element, right? So then we've got Copilot Free, Copilot Pro for individual users that don't necessarily have the business stack, the 365 stack. Then you've got Copilot M365, for business.
Okay.
That is $44.90 a month.
Okay.
Now, this is the update that was just discussed the other day, was the no seat minimum. Initially, they announced Copilot for 365 and there was a minimum seat requirement of 300 seats, all these other things. They've completely wiped that now. There's no seat minimum. The only catch for business owners out there is there is a 12-month commitment to the license. So you can't do it pay per month, okay? So $44.90 a user a month, 12-month commitment on top of the standard 365 licensing. That gives you Copilot added to your Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Teams, and then you can use it in SharePoint as well, basically. Our Loop as well as it also works in, and Outlook.
I'm keen to dive later on into the security element there and use that and stuff, but we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what's Copilot Sales then?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So there's Copilot Sales, and now, just to make it even more fun, there's Copilot for Services. So that's just been announced since the start of Feb.
Okay.
So the difference is, I guess, Copilot Sales essentially is that generative AI on the Microsoft stack, but it also lets you put the generative AI across things like your CRM platforms. Okay. Salesforce, ServiceNow, and what it does then is it grabs that data into the mix, and then you can start asking it questions about this, like the sales side of things. And Then the services one that's just been launched is essentially the same thing, but it's the generative AI across the top of some other different applications. So more service-based ones. So, it lets you then connect those with Microsoft Graph into internet sources. Like, it gives you that plus all the 365 for business. So it just gives you a whole nother realm of generative AI over the top of the standard Copilot.
In those last two scenarios, so sales and services.
Yes.
What's the integration overhead like on that? So if you could pull in all this data from your CRM or ERP or whatever, presumably. Yeah. Like the actual cost to maximize the potential return on that integration would be what? I mean, every business is going to be different because of the size or whatever.
Correct.
But is it fairly significant? Is it a relatively large scope of work?
Well, I guess all you have to look at and again, this is coming from a pretty non-technical perspective, but all you have to look at is the user cost per month, right? And how much time is it saving?
Sure.
So like, for example, you've got your, and that's the other thing. So if you get Copilot Sales, that is $50 a user a month. Now, I was supposed to check.
Is that USD?
Yeah, I was supposed to check. It is, I'm pretty sure, but we'll put some notes to this and confirm. But essentially, $50 per user a month, US, and that is going to incorporate 365 for Business Copilot. So it's a bigger umbrella than just the M365 or the Microsoft 365 Copilot. So you get that, right, per user per month. How much is that user chargeable per hour or worth per hour to the organization?
Yeah.
This should be saving something at least an hour, potentially every day or 2 days minimum.
Depending on how those users are trained and educated.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
So this should absolutely just by default, be worth it. And if you compare it to all the other current AI options out there, it's chump change.
It must be an emerging, the actual integration sort of the starting point for utilizing these must be an emerging consultancy space there, right? Like, and there's going to be some pretty large bills being allocated depending on the size of the business to go, hey, we actually want to integrate, this particular Copilot type with the CRM, the ERP to get access to those file libraries, to get access to that historical data, whatever. So there must be just a fairly significant, potentially significant cost up front.
Yeah, look, I think it doesn't matter what the technology is or what the data is. Like, it's kind of what it should be is complementary to the systems that the company already has in place. Doesn't necessarily mean that there has to be an initial large outlay apart from probably just talking to users about what prompts to give this generative AI. And so what I mean by that is you literally, with this generative AI, it's different to the open source where the AI becomes the being essentially and it does the work for the human. Generative AI really still requires the human to prompt it. Okay, so when we talk about prompts, we're talking about either speaking to the AI tool or typing into a box somewhere. So these tools, when you talk about implementation, it's really about what do we prompt it to go and fetch and bring back to us. So when we talk about the sales or the services component, or even using it within Word, Excel, PowerPoint, it's going to get data that's already there. It's only as good as fetching the data that it's connected to, right? So when we talk about the sales one, it might be connected to Salesforce. Okay, so the company already has Salesforce in place. Yeah, they're not implementing Salesforce.
No, but it's not. And so my job here, by the way, is to be honest about how dumb I am in the space. So sorry for all the stupid questions. But so in that case, hypothetically, right, Salesforce is there. Yeah. Is there actually that much to do to get Salesforce accessible for the Copilot application? No, right. Well, that answers my question. It's actually not a big deal.
That's right. It's probably why I didn't answer it.
Yeah,
so simply because I was like,
Brendan,
well, what are you talking about?
Shut up. You're wrong. Just say that.
No, it's true though, because it should be that straightforward around, except as I say, learning the prompts to make it work and fetch the right data. And that's going to be the key to all this for organizations to understand is it's quite intuitive, but you also want to get the best out of it if you're going to be paying for it, right? So understanding what those prompts are is probably probably, I think, for even First Focus, it will be a point of, like an option for us to be able to support our clients.
Yeah.
Like, what prompts do we use to make this stuff work? And then that is quite a good segue into the other type of Copilot we've got, which is Copilot Studio. And Copilot Studio is basically letting us connect Copilot into multiple different sources and customizing your own AI.
Right.
So, for example, Copilot Studio would let you connect it to SharePoint, your website, some other database, so on and so forth. So it works more on, it's a per user per month, but it actually is more around the number of messages you send it or requests you ask it.
Okay.
So that's something, like, we can obviously give more specifics around that, but Copilot Studio is probably something that our clients would probably look at doing, our larger clients, I would suggest, or any type of client that's interested in this, because that lets you customize. So what it does, potentially, example, you go to your website and you want people to be able to ask the website something, or flip side of that is internally within 365, you want your staff to be able to ask it something. So it might be like, what's our latest process or procedure around this, and please provide the documentation or the latest post that we've given to our clients to support this process, or whatever it might be. It's going external, internal, wherever else you're sending it. And then from a client's client perspective, they can go to the website and ask it questions. So, for example, if it's a training company, they could go to the client's training website and say, what course do I need to give me this? And it could go and bring back the top course types, give them a link to enroll in the course, the pricing of that course, any documentation they might want to download to read about that course.
That's got such an interesting marketing, like with my marketing hat on.
Yeah.
The idea there that you could almost set up products, ways to deal with customer inquiries for brands, and then only charge them on a success basis. So you could take them on their journey if you've got access to the right information and bring that back in. But anyway, that's a slight tangent. I just think, the implication for the way that we market products and services going forward is a whole different conversation probably, but it's so interesting.
Yeah, and it's actually a good point, and something that I wouldn't mind mentioning is we kind of have these different audiences for our generative AI or our Copilot, right? So we have our internal staff as a business owner, we have our clients, and then we have us as individuals. And we've got to kind of always flick between those hats when we're thinking about what approach we take, particularly as a company, okay? So what benefit is it going to give the individual as an employee working for a company that's implementing this sort of stuff? As a company, what was it doing for our own staff as a whole, our own team as a whole?
And retention rates.
Exactly. How's it positioning us in, as a hiring sort of point? And then it's how are our clients benefiting, and how are we using this to make our clients' lives easier? Yeah. And so that's essentially the three different audiences I would suggest for Copilot, or user cases, and then what Copilot option suits best. You know what I mean? So as an individual, there's nothing stopping you from going and getting that big one and having a play with it, right? And then as a business owner, you make the decision about maybe getting the staff, get a select user group of staff maybe to have a play with the Copilot for M365. And then if you want to get really fancy, you might go ahead and, chat to us about doing some proof of concepts or working through the Copilot Studio space. So the client side, right?
I suppose with anything, it's like with anything, you start by asking the question, what problem are we trying to solve, right?
Exactly.
And you go from there and you find they've all got great features, but which ones are relevant? There might be some nice unintended consequences where, as these things develop, and actually maybe that's a great point, is just simply we're at the tip of the iceberg as far as I can tell. Is it ChatGPT 5 is not far off? God knows what sort of power that's going to bring to other open applications, but
absolutely,
it's just going to keep racing ahead.
Well, and that's the other good point too. And I was listening to a podcast actually, and they were talking about the fact that Apple really hasn't come to the party yet.
Right.
But this year, at some point, they are going to be launching their iteration of it.
Because what's the one again? Does that with B?
Oh gosh,
No,
no.
Bane, Bard.
Oh, Bard. It's
Yeah.
dead. Bard's
it?
dead.
Oh, there
Bard's
you go.
officially dead.
Told you I knew nothing.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I was on again. That was on the same podcast. So that is officially gone because that was Google's.
No,
Yeah.
you said Apple. Yeah, my bad. See
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
No, nothing. Yeah.
But that was
My job is to make anybody else watching who knows that slightly more than me feel good about themselves.
Yeah, and
Done
that's
well.
literally me, slightly more. But so Bard was Google's. They've changed it now. They're reinventing it. But it's essentially really poor authentication. So, for example, their Google Workspaces, when you try and implement their version, it authenticates, but only with a personal account. So they're having all types of drama at the moment trying to get their side of things working. So Copilot is primed. If you've got Microsoft 365 for Business, you're in the prime seat to get ahead of the game because you're either going to be ahead or you're going to be behind. And it's really exciting times. It's not hard to implement. Obviously, you've got to commit to the licensing, but it's a lot of fun. Like now is the time to experiment with this stuff. And I guess it's a good segue into some, real examples for using 365 for Business.
Yeah.
Copilot.
What's the best way to do this? Do we talk about features or do we talk, the real world use cases, or do we talk about the GPTs and the mobile app and that sort of stuff? Or does that come into the real world use cases?
I think it kind of comes into it, right?
Okay.
So again, we were talking about the audiences or the types of versions that you would be using, depending on what hat you've got on. So, I am a user for an organization. So I have my job. I might be in HR. I might be in marketing, whatever it might be. And I've got Copilot. So what is it going to do for me? How's it going to improve my life, shall we say?
Or in some cases, if you're in marketing, make your life way more difficult in the near future when Google AdWords are not a thing and everyone's not searching for stuff that's where they're used to, and your whole strategy has to change. But I digress. Please carry on.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole nother realm. But I tend to think you're not needing to worry in that space as long as you're understanding the AI. But so, yes, I'm, an employee for an organization. I need to draft a document like you touched on before. I open my Word. The Copilot box pops open. I can do a couple of things. I can start writing my document, or I can load an existing document into the Copilot feature and say, please create me a letter of offer based on this as a template, or create this template letter of offer for this person and put a link to someone's details or something like that. And then it will generate it, and then you obviously edit it, maintain it. It can create it. You can ask the document then to start changing. So based on a certain set of style guides or whatever it is, you can sort of say tweak it, put the signature space on the second page.
Okay, how much can you train that? And under which scenarios, which product types can you train it to have your voice, other than just going, here's a style guide or a brand guide? Other than that, just based on previous alterations you made and to something suggested?
It has to be a request to the actual option. So it's not necessarily it gets better, but it all comes down to that prompting. So remember we were talking about knowing what to ask it. Yeah. So that's the key here. Is it's not going to get it's not one of the iterations of AI that, not yet, that essentially learns and grows. It's not that one. It's an iteration of it. You'll update it and upgrade it over time, or it will automatically do that. So in time, maybe it will get a bit creepily smart. Well, it will, but not to the point where it's doing it for you. That's the key here. That's the difference. It's not doing it for you. You've got to prompt it to do it for you. So it's not going to learn every time you ask it. So you will need to always have the prompt and have the base, or know specifically where to tell it or what to tell it to do, if that makes sense.
Sorry, just a question I meant to ask you before. Is it currently like Clippy where it will come up with suggestions based on stuff, or is it not that?
Yes, it absolutely comes up with suggestions.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
AI Clippy.
Gotta love. I totally forgot about Clippy.
I'll make Clippy.
Oh my gosh.
Nothing but punishing requests or ideas. It was never what you wanted.
Yes, no way. And pop up in the weirdest times.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's an example. The other, so it will do that across, so you can go into PowerPoint, for example, and say, create a presentation based on X, and you'll have obviously your company template. It'll do that. Again, you load the template. You might say create it. You can put links as well. Don't forget, it's not just loading attachments. You can put links to files, of course. Remember, this is, and just side note, security. I know everyone in their mind's going, what if I say something that's secure? Just keep in mind, permissions wise, it looks at access as it stands. It's not going to go and get things from information that is locked down. It is all based around existing permissions. And I think that's a really important thing for businesses that want to roll this out pretty quickly. It's going to get you to look pretty closely at your existing permissions from a data perspective. Who has access to what? Because it will find that information and it will present it as a, like a result.
Okay. Actually, it reminds me, very important, we're never salesy on this podcast, but because it's not salesy, it's just trying to get people to come along to a webinar we've got. Dan Maker, cybersecurity consultant out of WA, has using AI safely webinar at the end of this month, that month being February. So feel free to sign up and get along to that if you would like to. Please, carry on. Nice.
So, look, that's an example from a general user perspective, from a document creation. The other awesome feature it does, it sits in Teams. So what you can do is run the Copilot as the meeting's on. Mm-hmm. And at the end of it, you can ask Copilot to generate a summary of the meeting. Right. It's awesome. I've used this myself already. And it gives a fantastic summary, picks up all the things you wouldn't think it does, and then it also omits like casual chat as well. I don't know how it does it, but it nails it.
Okay. That's so interesting. I saw today Teams Premium is a thing coming out and is incorporating some of those features, I think.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point. So the 365 Copilot obviously is a premium, not premium, it's an add-on license, right? So it lets you essentially utilize the transcript of your Teams meetings. If you don't have Teams Premium as it stands, you don't get some of those features, but this is a little bit separate in the sense that anything Copilot related to get it to do its job, it incorporates. So you don't have to go and get Teams Premium and then Copilot.
Okay.
And that's my understanding of it. So
roast
me on the comments if I'm wrong. But I think, for me, the quickest win and the easiest win is that. When I first started using Copilot, apart from the individual one, from a business perspective, that was the first thing I did. Ran it over a meeting. It gave me the coolest summary so quickly. And then you can actually ask it to give you action items. And because everyone authenticates with a username logging into Teams, it tells you whose action item is what.
Yep.
Who's responsible for what. And so I think that is just an epic one. How many times you summarize a meeting, how many minutes that
I think
takes.
most people don't summarize meetings because they can't be bothered because it is hard work. And so you just exit a meeting.
Someone does it, right? So someone in admin, someone, is tasked with it.
What meetings are you going to? I exit so many meetings where no one says anything afterwards. But okay, sure, you're in better
bad
meetings.
habits. Oh my gosh.
I didn't say I was at this company.
Yeah, that's right. But no, it is unreal, and that saves time. Like honestly, and the action items and all of that. Like it just, that to me is the quickest win. And then you can get more technical. So let's talk about Excel.
Do we have to?
Yeah, I know, right?
Okay, fine.
Excel. So
yeah.
I can't sort of emphasize enough the absolute time saving it would save, particularly for people who don't like maths, right? To open an Excel spreadsheet and then go create me a graph that has, these relationships, so I can visually see, like what this data is telling me.
Yeah.
You can go so far as to actually also ask it to do functions across data as well. So not just formulas or whatnot. It'll actually, you can also say create a column that shows me the relationship between X and Y, and it will then populate the column for you. So Excel is probably going to be a huge one.
Can you say stop making this field a date? I don't want it to be a date. Does that happen to anyone else? I just always, everything I put in a field, it just changes like 2nd of February. I'm like, no, just 2 divided by.
I bet it probably could. I haven't tried that one, but yeah, absolutely.
Come back to me.
This is the thing. So it's just think about the time savings, right? So, and then every time you come back to the cost, as an organization, it by rights should just make everyone so much more productive. But I think that then segues us into some of the risks. And it's an interesting topic that I want to come back and talk about. But if I park that for a second and just think about some of the other quick scenarios. So we've talked meetings, we've talked Excel, working on documents. It's also going to give you suggestions for responding or drafting Outlook emails, so your emails. It's also going to allow you to create task lists in Loop or Planner.
Right. Yep.
So task management side of things. The other thing it will let you do, and this is probably super technical, but for the nerds out there, it will let you say, create me a workflow or Power Automate that does X, Y, Z.
Lost me.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
So it's a workflow, like generates the workflow formula, shall you say, for some of those automation options, which is very cool. It doesn't do it all for you. It gives you sort of suggestions or templates or the formula to use to create it. So I think that's the key, because a lot of people are like, oh, it can, build me this and do that. But you still, again, need the prompts. You need to know where it goes and all that sort of stuff. One of the other things that I just remembered is too with Teams. You know how sometimes people, they have a meeting, right? They join late. It's kind of like, well, and then like, oh, can someone just fill me in on what's happened so far in this meeting? You can actually ask Copilot, summarize what's happened in this meeting so far.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Literally nothing. Small talk.
Yeah.
You've missed nothing.
That's right. So it's pretty cool. It will give you that. And the other thing it does actually in the meetings is it will essentially give you suggestions on where it's almost going. So it'll be like, oh, well, they've discussed X in the agenda, it's got this or whatever it might be, and it will say we need to discuss this. Or
does it ever summarize the meeting as this could have been an email, or like that would be useful?
Wouldn't that be funny? I think there's definitely going to be some cool iterations of this as the AI gets relaunched every so often.
I was watching that. I think I tagged you on LinkedIn, didn't I? The Super Bowl ad that Microsoft put out on Copilot. And they gave a lot of examples of applications where it was like, hey, I've created this one image as part of a storyboard. Can you flesh this out over like 20,000 more frames or whatever to align with this narrative? Or, someone going, hey, write me the code for the following thing, whatever. Right? It just struck me that if we were to try and put sort of a nail on exactly what this is doing, I feel like it's democratizing talent. Like it's democratizing skill sets. It's creating a quality of capability in the workforce because you only have to know just a bit to have access to a whole bunch more now. Like you said, if you know the right prompt, if you have an idea, and also if you're able to fact check to some degree the code or the biography it just wrote for you or whatever, right? You can kind of go, nope, that doesn't sound right, or yes, it does. It opens up so much more capability for an individual. And I feel like as an employer, if you give people these tools, it enables them to create so much more output and a higher value output. Yeah. Whereas if you don't, then the companies that do will probably leave you behind.
Well, that's exactly right. We've almost come full circle talking about, the benefits, like, and what we said right at the start. If you're a business that doesn't get on board with this, you are instantly being left behind, because whether you are a Mac, and that's something else like I didn't finish off before, is whether you're a Mac person and you're holding off because you're waiting for the Apple version. If you're even a Mac person and you get up to speed with some of this stuff now, you're going to be far further ahead than waiting, because right now, just by holding off, you're behind.
I just went straight to Return of the Mac when you said that. If you're a Mac, it's like, okay, anyway, is that Montel Jordan? It might be. I'm really not sure, but please carry on. We need to stop interrupting with
but it's true. Like chat. I think it's just got to be something that we have. And I remember reading a book quite some years ago now by Michael McQueen, and I don't know if you've heard of it, called How to Prepare Now for What's Next. No. And it talks about trends. And it's a great book. But it's kind of scary because it talks about AI in that taking over sense. Like, it's going to take our jobs and it's going to, do all these things and turn against us and take over the world. And look, whilst that might actually happen, I don't know. But this is completely positive, this generative AI.
Point. This is what gets us all
That's
in.
right.
Once we're in.
Yeah. It's a slippery slope. But no, seriously though, like it is just so beneficial and it's not too hard to implement. Obviously, there's lots of different things to check across, and that probably takes us into some of the risks.
Can I just jump in there with a couple of things? One is, I think I said to you when we're sort of prepping for this, right? It's that whole AI is not going to take your job. Someone who uses AI better than you do will, and it's that kind of thing. So I think it's right now it's a tool. It's something that will get you ahead. The other thing is one of your notes that we had lined up was talk about amplified creativity. So just as a real world example of the application, right? I'm an absolute noob when it comes to creative design, anything like that. Like I suck, but using very cool. It's not much in common. But with I think I was using ChatGPT 4 for this, but in my head, I had a fairly clear idea of how I wanted a brochure to look. And so I was able to basically just put in some prompts. It created some ideas around sort of hybrid designs between, our own security logo with some sort of Microsoft input to illustrate a hybrid design logo. And then kind of show our graphic designer in-house, just at a high level, kind of was thinking how it'd be framed up and sort of just mock it up within about 20 minutes, right? And then without having to do as much backwards and forwards, she was able to come up with a really good end result. And so again, sort of coming back to that creating a higher level of capability for individuals, I suck so much, but that enabled me to convey an idea that was outside of my wheelhouse typically in a way that enabled the end product to be created far faster. So
absolutely. And I think that's exactly right. And it just allows us to be so much more proficient across so many more areas. I'm just trying to think of, another way of cutting it, but I don't think there is. I think that's probably the nail on the head. Is it just it just lets us get on with our jobs. Like for me, I keep going back to my experience, and I guess that's all I can do. But like I've always been so not against it, but just I guess you don't know what you don't know. And until I really delved into it, I found it a concerning thing, and now I've realised quite quickly it's just so complementary. That's the thing. It's complementary to our own skill sets. It lets us use this for the things. It's almost like default outsourcing to the things we're not great at. It does that for us.
Such a good
so
call.
we can focus on what we love, what we're good at, what we're passionate at. And it lets us, use it to do all the other things. Like you just said, like you basically outsourced it to do that one thing that would have taken you a while. And it's a good example too of a real life scenario a lot of people have been using ChatGPT in general for is creating marketing blog posts, I should say, not specifically marketing content, but like a lot of, small business owners are kind of like, do my social media post for this picture based on X, or create me a blog post on this.
So I've got a theory about that too. The problem is with everyone being able to create so much content now, so much more of the content being created is absolute crap. And so it's almost like it sets the bar higher. You really have to, hopefully great content like this, for example, to stand out in a crowded market. So please let this not be crap. Anyway, sorry, I cut you off ages ago. You were going to talk about the next thing, which I think was the risk, was it? Or
And these risks probably are a bit of a combination, again, like the audiences with our hats around individual business owners and then our clients as businesses. But essentially, in no specific order, I've got a pretty of a list here and I wanted to cover them off. So the first one is obviously data access. So we talked about security, right? It's always a concern. The awesome thing about the 365 for Business Copilot, and it's probably not the right way to say it, I must say, Copilot M365.
Thank you. I was going to say something, but what
so it's about security, data, permissions. It's going to get data based on what the user has access to, okay? So you got to tighten that ship up if you haven't done that already. Make sure the data sources have got the right permissions on them for starters, because it's going to give those results based on what it can go and get, okay? That is also a positive in the sense that compared to a lot of the other tools, that are open out there, once you request results or put information into it, it takes it to learn more, right? Whereas this is internal. So it will, unless of course you activate the certain features, but it will only get the data and use the data it has access to based on that authentication for your license.
Right.
The next one is around, a little bit of a lead on from that is the security risks. So your security risks can create a lot of new data very quickly for an organization. So, lots of tables, create graphs, give me this presentation, create that document. All of this is happening so quickly. It's more and more information. Where is that going? So it talks to making sure that the organization has a really good cybersecurity sort of policy, a great digital sort of like strategy. What are people doing with that? The structure, all of those pieces that have kind of been there, that have been a bit, airy-fairy to date or probably pre-COVID. We need to make sure they're tightened up. What are people going to be doing with this after the creation of it?
Yeah.
Where's it going? And so there's obviously that security risk around just making sure that that whatever that policy standard, whatever that looks like, is well in place, just like the permissions. Then AI in general, there's licensing concerns. So obviously, once it's created, like I was saying before, once it's created, it's out there. What happens? And then from a licensing perspective, specifically, who gets access to it based on what licensing, the cost of licensing, all that sort of side of things, the opportunity cost of the organization. And then another one, this is getting a bit into the individual space, is the distraction for users. So it's fun. Let's see what it can do. Let's just spend all our time researching AI. So I guess this still has to be some form of behavioural or internal policy around using it, when they're using it, what it's being used for.
Yeah. I think if each roles, though, have key definitions of success, and arguably if this was implemented as a tool for employees, you could ramp those up a touch in theory if there really is that improved thing. So I think people might still stuff around with it, but if the expectations are clearly set.
Yeah. Then the other one that's interesting is bad habits. So people will go, I'll just use that. I'll just use Copilot for that. I'll just use AI for that. I'll just use ChatGPT for that. So it's a bit of a creating laziness. But that then feeds into the next one, which is probably something more as a parent gets me a little bit concerned, which is the reduced reliance on critical thinking.
Yeah.
Bit scary because it's kind of like, I'll just ask Copilot, like a teenager, I don't care. Well, Copilot will tell me. So it's may potentially in the future we might see a scenario where people's problem solving skills.
Yeah. See, because if you Googled something, right, or Binged, I guess, no one does that, but anyway, then you still...
You're not allowed to say that. We're talking about Microsoft 365.
Sorry, corporate daddy.
You're in trouble.
Oh my God. All right, well, I'll see myself out. But before I do, you'd be given in any search engine of your choice a number of results, right? And then you would self-apply a minimum level of critical thinking, which is which one of these sources do I trust? Which one to me seems true, right? Whereas with these large language models, you're given an answer, you're given an output. So you have to, like I said before, be capable of questioning it, reviewing it, applying that critical thinking to check it. But I think a lot of people do. They go, it still makes mistakes, but I'm not sure how capable we are of assessing
disseminating.
That.
Yeah, exactly. And that's my last my last item in the risks is around it can make mistakes. Like it can get it wrong. It can go and get data that might not that's out there that might not necessarily be right. And
at this point, it doesn't give you a percentage of accuracy sort of score. It doesn't rate itself in terms of quality of output.
Absolutely not. So, that's no different to humans though. Like sometimes you might go and ask someone to get it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you don't it's not a new thing, but it's just something, again, because of the scale of it, how quickly we're using, how much we're going to use it and what it's giving to us so readily, it's more of an issue because it's like, well, I'm just going to trust it because it told me. So there's a bit of a cross-check of that. Where is Copilot gone to get this data? And is that data accurate?
Yeah. And Who the hell knows? All right. That is, I think, time for us. Because I saw Danny looking through the window. He's in a different room doing the producing
getting
thing.
the cutoff.
Your time's up, get out. So I think what we should do is let people know where they can find you if they would like to keep the conversation going. You're on LinkedIn, obviously, Mia Tait.
Yes.
And I guess just mia.tait@firstfocus.com.au.
That's me. So obviously, if you're a client of ours, you've got your TAM.
Yeah.
So your account manager. So reach out if you want to catch up and have a bit more of a chat about it. I guess, so I've just come back from maternity leave. So I will be probably looking at increasing my, what would you call it, footprint online. I'll try and get alongside the First Focus, podcasting and all that sort of stuff, the marketing side of things, get a bit more of a profile going.
Actually, that's a great point. We're going to help you get out sort of, Microsoft application updates, tips, tricks each month. I think that's the plan, isn't it? So basically follow Mia, and you'll be likely to see a lot of pretty useful tips and tricks going forward.
Awesome.
But on that front, thank you very much for joining me, being the guinea pig.
Pleasure.
Week 1, episode 1. Welcome back, by the way, from maternity leave. Thank you very much for watching. If you have got this far, make sure that you follow us on YouTube, Spotify. That's the best place because, of course, video. Otherwise, whatever podcast platform you like. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Thanks again.